I'm going to give a couple minutes till I see some people have joined, and then we'll start with introductions. Welcome, everyone. We have a great show tonight. We have a very special guest, The Ways of a Gentleman. We are going to begin very shortly. I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes for a few more friends to join. So during this time, if you wouldn't mind, say hello below. You can click on the video and there should be a live chat over to the side, the right-hand side if you're on a computer. And if you're on your phone, it should be down at the very bottom. Drop us a line. Let us know you're watching. Say hello. And don't forget to leave some questions for the gentleman. We will be taking questions. And we will begin very shortly. You could also take this time to repost, let everybody know that you're watching, and encourage more people to join. That would be great. We will talk very soon. Good evening, everyone. Very happy you can join us this evening, wherever you are. It's just gotten dark where I am, and it's a great evening to sit back and have a good discussion with The Ways of a Gentleman. A very exciting account on X. I'm very happy to know this gentleman and to bring him to you this evening. So I hope you got something to drink and you're sitting back and relaxed and ready to ask some questions. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm glad that you can join me this evening. I have a very special guest, The Ways of a Gentleman. So I hope that you are comfortable, got something to drink, and are just going to sit back and enjoy a nice conversation with our friend here. And if you wouldn't mind saying hello in the comments below. If you're on a laptop, it should be over to the right-hand side. If you're on your phone, I believe a live chat is going to be at the bottom of your screen once you click on the video. Let us know you're watching. Let us know any questions you might have for the gentleman. And The Ways of a Gentleman, welcome to Mad Talks. How are you this evening, sir?
I am great and excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you are here. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And I was just telling the viewers, looks like we're having a little technical difficulty and you might drop off. If so, we'll wait for you to rejoin, and hopefully it's doesn't keep occurring, but hopefully we can just go through with a nice discussion.
That sounds great. And I will hope that we don't have any more technical difficulties. So my apologies if we do.
Oh, no problem. Well, sir, let me start off by just asking you a little bit about your account. But before we begin, I love your avatar picture. Would you mind telling us who is your avatar picture and why did you choose that avatar?
Yeah, so that is Admiral Horatio Nelson. He is one of the most famous Navy officers in history, and was very famous for the British and the Napoleonic Wars. Now, I chose him perhaps not so much for his gentlemanly attributes, but because of his courage in battle. He was
Okay.
small in stature. He was 5'4", but he was a lion in battle. He lost an eye, an arm in 2 different battles, and continued to fight, and ultimately perished in the Battle of Trafalgar. So, just a great hero that I think a lot of.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty courageous and heroic man. Keep fighting with wounds like that. After you told me who that was, I went and looked back through my pictures, and in Trafalgar Square in London, they actually have a statue of him atop a tall column to honor him. So I posted that picture on X. It's pretty interesting. Oh, looks like we just lost the gentleman. Hopefully this won't be common throughout the evening. So I will try to make do just talking to you while we're waiting for him to rejoin. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Gentleman account. It's a pretty intriguing account. He gets into a lot of different topics. I'm going to bring the gentleman back on here.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Yeah, I was just starting to talk a little bit about your account. I was wondering if you could tell us what inspired you to start your account and kind of what's the mission with what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so around I guess it was the end of 2023. I was determined to only seek out things of beauty and culture and history on Twitter, and so that's what I did, starting in 2024. And after a few months, after seeing accounts like Evan Amato and others, well, I'm interested in doing this. I think I can do it on my own. So in August of last year, I started this account, Ways of a Gentleman, because it's always something that I've thought about. I've actually had written a book about manners and etiquette before, just had not yet edited or published it. So that's why I started the account in August, and kind of broadened beyond just etiquette into all the attributes that I feel a gentleman should have.
Yes, it's very, very timely, I would say. As we look around our culture, it seems like there's been a decay, and maybe I'm hopeful we're seeing a resurgence. So I think we'll get into some of that tonight. I'm always impressed by the content that you have. It looks like he dropped off again. Well, I'll tell you folks, I'm always impressed by the content that the gentleman has. He goes from movie stars to generals to painters, sports figures, all kinds of different gentlemen from today or yesteryear. And I'll bring him back on here. I was just yep, we can hear you. I was just explaining. I'm always impressed by the content that you have and the variety. And I was curious, how do you curate the content for your channel? How do you come up with these? Do you have like a long list of who you're looking for and who you want to feature, or is it just day to day different people kind of come to mind?
Yeah. So at first, I did have a long list of just.
Oh no, folks! I don't know what is plaguing the gentleman and his connection tonight, but it's kind of painful, I think, for him to keep joining and dropping. So we'll see if this gets better, and if not, we might have to rebook another evening. Hello, Liberty Mom. I'm very glad that you are out there watching this evening. And I'm glad that you're commenting. We always need questions and comments. And Shelly from Beautiful Histories. Yes, he has great content. One of my faves. Definitely one of my faves as well. Hopefully he can rejoin us. I even put on a proper shirt and tie for this evening, even if it is a little casual here with it being after dinner. Hopefully he will be joining us back again soon. What I want to talk to the gentleman tonight a little bit about is, what is a gentleman? How do we define this? What traits define a gentleman? How much of it is visual? How much of it is, in his soul, his character, his virtues? and just kind of talking about where we are in society. Hey, Shelly, you're so encouraging. Thank you. Let's see. It looks like we have the gentleman rejoining.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, sir? I can hear you. Yes.
All right. I have switched off my computer and moved to my phone. So
Okay.
let's see if this works. We can continue if that's okay with you, David.
Yeah. Absolutely. We will try this, and we will not have your slides, but that's okay. I think we can work without them. If you're able to email them to me, I can always load them in here. But if not, we will just make do with just talking. So that works for me. So I was asking, you have such a nice variety of content on your X account. How do you go about curating that? What inspires you? How do you find these people? What do you look for?
Yeah. So when I started, I had a kind of a long list of things to discuss, and primarily it was manners, etiquette, and then I started to, as I broadened, I wanted to dig into those men in history that I thought really embodied what it meant to be a gentleman. And on that kind of search, I began to find different artists that I was not yet familiar with. And then again, some of those gentlemen in history, both Americans and otherwise, who I really love to learn more about. And as I learned more about them, of course, those are the ones that I post about.
Great. Let me ask you this. Can you give us your definition? What is a gentleman? I've got a couple, dictionary definitions we'll read here, but I'm curious from you. What is a gentleman?
Yeah. So obviously, historically speaking, you think of the aristocratic, the landed gentry, right, in Britain, and of course, that was a gentleman who was of certain stature in society. I think, obviously we're beyond that now. And when we think about a gentleman, certainly, manners and etiquette, they play a role in that. But I think it's more than that. It's about, are you honorable? Carry yourself with dignity. And more importantly, how do you make others feel? Right?
Yeah.
A man could have all those attributes, but if you think you're better than others and you make them feel bad about themselves one way or another, that in my mind, you are not a gentleman at all.
Yeah. Very good. Would you say a gentleman has a servant's heart? Is that fitting?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, there's certainly a servant leader part of that. And I think that's part of, being cognizant of other people, not just ladies or children or the elderly. It's everyone, right? You're taking, their feelings into consideration in everything that you do.
Okay. Let me ask you this: Is there an age limit? At what point can someone become a gentleman?
Yeah, that's a great question. I hadn't really thought about it, but I will say this, my son, for example, my youngest is 9 years old,
Okay.
and he is quite the gentleman. That's his mom played a huge role in that, of course, but the way he carries himself, being conscious of other people, and of course, as he matures in time, he'll have some of those other attributes of a man. But yeah, I don't know if there's really an age limit.
Okay. I was picking your brain about this the other day. Is there a hierarchy? Is gentleman the top man, or is it a facet of being a man? And I was kind of thinking of it in this terms. Could you have a virtuous man who is not? He doesn't have manner. He doesn't have table manners. He was never taught these things. And he's disheveled, things like that. But he's virtuous and he is sensitive to other people. Is he a gentleman? Or on the flip side of that, can there be somebody who is genteel and knows all the social etiquette and those kind of things, but maybe outside of the company of other people, is a rascal and kind of undermines the character side. Can he be a gentleman? How do you think of those two?
Yeah, I think the former is more of a gentleman, right? I think
Yeah.
the virtues themselves, one of the most important aspects of being a gentleman. Whereas
Yeah. Okay.
the other person who may have, on the outside appearance, may think himself to be a gentleman, but if he lacks those virtues and doesn't care for his fellow man, again, I'd say he's not a gentleman at all. He's probably just a snob.
Okay. Yeah. I think of Jesus in rebuking the Pharisees, says that they worry about like washing the outside of the cup,
Yes.
not the inside.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, right?
That's
so.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. Great. Looks like Liberty Mom here says your content is so important. Have you had any hate mail in this day and age? Oh, that's a great question, Liberty Mom.
Yes, and Liberty Mom, thank you. I enjoy your platform as well. Yeah, honestly, I do, sometimes get hate mail for a variety of reasons, and usually it's just people that are snarky. I don't even respond to them. My first instinct is to respond back, but I don't even respond because, unfortunately, I think when I get those kind of DMs or posts, it's almost they've associated in their head a negative connotation of what it means to be a gentleman. And what I mean by that is they may in their head think of that a snob as opposed to a kind-hearted and sensitive gentleman, if that makes sense. But yes, I do indeed receive hate mail time to time.
Yeah, there's haters for every day of the week, isn't there? And they haters are gonna hate. It's no way around it. It's sad. Let me read this. Excuse me, folks. Let me read this definition. This is from Webster's 1828 dictionary. It says a gentleman is a man of good breeding, politeness, and civil manners, as distinguished from the vulgar and clownish. I think the good breeding is a little maybe comical, but I like the last part specifically where it says as distinguished from the vulgar and the clownish. And then a modern Oxford Languages definition says a chivalrous, courteous, or honorable man, a polite or formal way of referring to a man. Do you think those are good definitions, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, as you said, perhaps maybe not the well-bred part.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah. In fact, I had a list of some different attributes I had just kind of annotated over the past couple of weeks of what it means to be a gentleman. And a lot of that definition that you read really embodied a lot of that. And it was everything from being honorable and what that means. Are you a man of character? Do you have integrity? Are you conscious of other people? And that doesn't mean just feelings, but I always think about if you're in a restaurant or a public place and someone's having a FaceTime conversation very loudly as if no one else is in the room, right? They're not conscious of other people in the room.
Right.
So, distinguished, or do you have a good personal appearance and posture, how you carry yourself, right? And then you had mentioned chivalry. Yes, I think there is an aspect of chivalric, if I can get the word out, nature and being a gentleman, and that's choosing that hard right over the easy wrong, right? When everyone else is walking past something that's happening, in my mind, the gentleman's going to stop and do what's necessary either to assist someone or make a situation right. So there's a bit of courage that's required as well.
Absolutely. It seems like this was held high in our society, going back, to George Washington through recently the Boy Scouts, with the Boy Scout pledge, and it seems like today, well, I don't know. We'll get into a little bit maybe today, a little bit later on, but it seems like it's I don't know if it's just like a cycle and there's a couple generations that kind of missed the cue on this and it's coming back around, I hope. But man, it really feels like there's a void today.
Yeah.
And so that's one reason I really appreciate your account and what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think there's, it's not widespread, right? I think there's still a lot of people out there that have the same sort of beliefs, right? And they conduct themselves in that gentlemanly manner. Unfortunately, I think by and large in society, whether you start with the sexual revolution, where people kind of just let anything go, up till now, where social media, while it has many great attributes, right, and can be very helpful and help people learn,
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of people have developed bad habits, and are actually using the social media for the wrong things, and in doing so, they are deteriorating.
Yeah, absolutely. You think it's just something I'm doing online here, but you're actually deteriorating your soul, when you
Yeah.
behave like that.
That's right.
Teaching yourself to be like an animal. We are human, and in this case, we're talking about gentleman, and the gentleman is not an animal. He is above an animal. Let me ask you this. I mean, we're kind of dancing all around it. I have a 21-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old daughter. And, since they've been little, I've tried to, my wife and I have raised them right, and they are great, great daughters. I'm super proud of. They're in church every Sunday, and they're confirmed members of our church, and just wonderful ladies, hardworking, honest. But they would probably be the first to be like, "Oh, come on, Dad, a gentleman. Are you going to put on a top hat? Like, is that really necessary?" So what is kind of your, what would you say to that person? Like, is it really necessary? Is this just like over the top for show? The gentleman. What would you say for that?
Yeah, I know. I think it is necessary. I think it's good for the individual gentleman himself, right? When you conduct yourself in that manner, those different attributes that we've discussed.
Mm-hmm.
I do think a young man or a man carries himself with more confidence, and other people feed off that. People can see that, right?
Yeah.
On all those different aspects, and it's good for them as well, right? Well, if you see a well-dressed man carrying himself well in the grocery store, who's helping other people, maybe a older lady drops something and helps her, you see that guy and you think, yeah, I need to be like him, right?
Right.
And then likewise, as you said, I think it's important to teach our daughters that that's the kind of man that you should be with. Not a guy who gets up late, wherever he goes, he's disheveled, poorly dressed, slouches, all those different things, and certainly acts in a cowardly behavior. Hey, I also have an 18-year-old daughter, and that's not the kind of man I want for her.
Right. Yep. Yeah, very important. I think going back to our earlier discussion, like the character side, the virtues are what's really important. But the dress side and the manners and that side of it, when somebody dresses nicer, we've all seen, I think, the studies that show, like a school that has a formal dress code, the students tend to do better or more well behaved, things like that. Like when you have on a certain attire, you feel like I need to rise to this occasion. When I've just got sweatpants on, I feel like I can kind of slouch and just sit on the couch. But it does affect, I think, your mood and how you carry yourself, and all of those are definitely important in being a respectful citizen. We've got a couple questions here. Fascinating History. I'm glad that you are watching this evening. How are you? Fascinating History is asking, what book has been most influential for you?
Well, other than the Bible, there's I'm a pretty voracious reader. So there's a lot on my list. I'll tell you that. I'll go with I'll give you a couple of nonfiction, and then a couple of fiction if that will work. One of the books that really impacted me as a young college freshman was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I purchased a copy then because a mentor told me to read it, and I've since read it probably half a dozen times. And that book is great because again, it is not necessarily about being a gentleman. It is just how to treat people kindly, right? And in doing so, you often find that there's a lot of positive benefits to doing that. So that's one. There's a number of different leadership books that I've enjoyed, and where, gosh, George Marshall's biography is probably the best. It's a 4-volume series. George Marshall was the chief of staff of the Army during World War II, and he embodies a lot of those same attributes as George Washington, a quiet, confident leader who treats people with kindness, but he gets the job done. And there's other biographies that are not 4-part series, Fascinating History. So you'll have to look into that. And then fiction-wise, there's so many. One book that came out a few years ago by Amor Towles is A Gentleman in Moscow. I think about 2015, 2016. And that is a fantastic fictional account. You have a count who, after the Bolsheviks take over, he is basically exiled to live in a luxury hotel in Moscow for the rest of his life. And what I really love about that is because you have someone that's an aristocrat. Certainly he kind of embodies the old school landed gentry. But throughout the book, as he loses possessions and becomes impoverished and he ages in this hotel, he hasn't lost the true meaning of what it means to be a gentleman, right? Which is how you make others feel, right? And that's the whole purpose of manners and etiquette, by the way, is yes, you want to feel comfortable in any situation, but it's also to have a level playing field, right? And make everyone feel okay about the situation, not to make them feel bad if they don't know something. But those are just a few books that come to mind.
Liberty Mom says she missed the title of the last one. What was it about the Moscow? A Gentleman in Moscow?
A Gentleman in Moscow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful book. It's one of those ones that I read every year just for fun because it's a beautiful story.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Fascinating History says interesting. Thank you, Liberty Mom. She's dropped a couple comments here. She says, hey, my husband is a clown, literally. I'm blessed to be married to a gentleman, and it seems to me that a gentleman is always thinking about others, and that rules their ways. Yes, that sounds spot on. That's great. And good for you, Liberty Mom, that you chose well, married well. Gentlemen, let me ask you, how do we balance modern values with the timeless virtues in the pursuit of being a gentleman? And where do you see the gentleman alive today? And the reason I asked the first part is, like I said, like you'll post a picture of Cary Grant or George Washington or something. They look so dapper and nice and things like that. Like, how do I bring that to today? How do I be Cary Grant today without drawing attention to myself when I walk out on the street? Like that guy's trying to be, special or a Cary Grant or, how do I bring that to today?
Yeah, I would say, and I would tell, any man this is just being cognizant of how you carry yourself, right? You don't have to wear a overcoat or a tuxedo everywhere you go, but if you take the time to knock the mud off your shoes and iron your clothes and walk with pride and some good posture.
Yeah,
those simple things make a huge difference.
I
think it's also the self-control. And that doesn't mean temptation-wise. I mean just how you carry yourself in everyday conversations. right? If
Okay.
someone pulls out in front of you, do you yell and scream and make a mockery of yourself, or do you just take a deep breath and keep going?
Yeah.
Right? If there's
Yeah.
a long line at the grocery store, are you going to throw a fit like a child, or are you going to remain calm and just patiently wait? Right? Those are the sorts
Right.
of things that I think that we can everyday things that you can do to be a gentleman,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be anything special. It's just those little things, right?
You know, one thing that I think is really unfortunate is it seems like profanity is so common, uh, just to say in front of, I'm not big on saying profanity regardless, but especially in the company of women. I work in a group and there's women and men in the same room. And, there's one guy that'll just, drop F bombs and say whatever is on his mind in front of these ladies. And it's just like, what have we become where we don't even have that kind of, we don't just feel so open about anything anymore. And I see it, just on the street. You can be walking down the street and you'll just hear people just saying the most crude things, regardless of who's around, or maybe because of who's around, because they want the attention or whatever. But it's just, it never makes them sound intelligent. It never makes them sound dignified or respectful or somebody that, I want to be like. I don't know who they're trying to impress, but it's never comes off good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's the ability to be dignified in all your actions, right? Rather than
Yeah.
being vulgar and rude, are you dignified in how you speak? And I spent 26 years in the Army, so I encounter that quite a bit. And
Yeah.
I remember years and years ago, I had a young officer. We were talking one day. He said, "Hey, sir, can I ask you a question? I noticed something about you. I noticed that you don't curse." I said, "Yeah, I just don't feel like I need to, man. I have other words I can use." And he said, "What?"
Right.
He goes, "You're the first person I've worked for that doesn't do that." So, well, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes.
Yeah.
Um, but it was interesting how this one young officer picked up on that, and it made me think at that time, wow, I really need to be cognizant of what I do say,
Yeah.
because others are out there, and I'm like you. If I don't believe a man should speak with vulgarity around a woman. You shouldn't do it at all,
Right.
but certainly not around a woman.
Right.
Um, but unfortunately, it becomes commonplace in entertainment and on social media, and I think that's where we gotta perhaps be cognizant of what we watch and what we allow our families to watch as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is. It's crazy what's shown on television anymore. Ms. Susan, thank you for dropping us a question, Ms. Susan. She says, yes, from a female perspective, with experiences with Europeans and Americans, polished, clean, well groomed, classic dress. Example, black slacks and white collared shirt. Slacks not under a gentleman chin. LOL. No bulky shoes, manners, courtesy, sense of humor. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Susan. Appreciate you joining us this evening. Gentlemen, let me ask you, why do you think the concept of a gentleman has become an endangered species? How did we get to where we are, where we need somebody like you on a soapbox reminding us to be gentlemen? How did we get here?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think a lot of it has to do with again going back to the 60s and 70s, and you see that if you watch old television shows, right? Um, there was a goodness, right? There was a family unit, a mother and a
Yeah,
father.
yeah,
There was no profanity. The father was respected, the mother was respected, and then pick your show, right? From the Waltons to Mayberry, whatever. Fast forward to today, you rarely see that, and if you do, unfortunately, the dad's portrayed as a buffoon,
yeah,
right? Or any person in authority, unfortunately.
right.
Um, and it's become commonplace in our entertainment to, I don't know why, but hey, most movies they're gonna have foul language. They're gonna have find a way to have some sort of nudity in there, and
Yeah,
I think all those things are bad for the soul.
Yeah.
And they have led to this, you know, that coupled with social media and having everything at one time.
Yeah.
Now that has kind of denigrated what it means to be a gentleman, right? Because, well, people don't think that's important, particularly, sadly, if they grow up in a home without a gentleman or a father to emulate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Um, I've asked, not necessarily in the context of the gentleman, but just society and how did we get here? And it seems like I 100% agree. It seems like the 60s were kind of a turning point, but like what led to the 60s, and like I've listened to he's an Anglican. He was an Anglican bishop. He's a professor and a Bible scholar. His name's Professor N.T. Wright. And he talks about kind of going back, like, yeah, we can be upset and wring our hands about kind of the postmodern world and what has happened. But he says, like, maybe silver lining is maybe there was arrogance in, modernity and even pre-modernity, the Romantic era and things like that, where it was kind of like, don't question authority. Just do as I say because I'm the authoritarian figure, whatever that might be. And just part of the natural progression from like the Age of Enlightenment, that there's knowledge and education and people can learn things through questioning, that there became like this undermining of the authority figure, and that the authority figure couldn't just stand on because I said so, and that there's like this backlash. And I don't know, maybe an optimistic view can be that and postmodernism sees the good institutions again, and maybe the cultural values can be restored. Like maybe we went through the cycle now, and people can start to recognize, like, it feels like, to me at least, that there's maybe a resurgence in some of these core values and, like yesteryear. And I see, on X in particularly, people wanting to kind of have this traditional values, traditional roles, kind of, like they're craving that, young women and young men. And maybe we've kind of went around the block of like undermining it, tearing it down, and now people are ready to build it up again, hopefully. And this time it'll be with more respect, I hope. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah. And I've seen, and by the way, I was able to send you the slides. I don't know if
okay, great.
If it's a moot point now, but back to your point though. Yeah, I've seen plenty of studies that show that church attendance is up. I'm in a fraternal organization with other men, and we have a number of young people coming in their 20s. So yes, I think there's a resurgence. I think there is a desire to be a man who lives virtuously, and likewise for women. And I think I'm hopeful that as we see, more and more of these type of like Angel Studios and these types of production companies, if you will, there's great value in that, and I hope that we see more of those coming along, and that the entertainment industry and others will catch on that what they've been selling the last few decades, it's time to go.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I'm loading your slides right now. Ms. Susan says, excellent questions, compliments. Purity is underrated. Forgive me, I am being rude. Pardon. Your guest is spot on. Compliments. And arrogance is the worst. Goes hand in hand with narcissism. And she also asked, do you think environment plays a factor, or is it the individual?
I think
Good question, Ms. Susan.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think the environment plays an important role. It's sad but true. But I've seen plenty of cases where, and I've seen this in my professional career in the Army, where you may have a young man or woman that comes from nothing in the worst of environments, but they are determined to do something with their life, and they're not going to be like their parents were. So certainly plays a factor. And sometimes it pushes people in the right direction.
Yeah. Yep. And then I'm sure you see the flip side where somebody's had everything perfect for them and it's just spoiled them. And
Right.
they're the worst individual you want to be around, right?
Yeah. I've known some of those too.
Yeah. Liberty Mom says it's very encouraging. Hubby just started a cadets program at the firehouse. Young men need this. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. I do have your pictures loaded, so we can look at those whenever you'd like. Let me ask you another question though before we go there. One thing I see a lot of today, and this is coming from, like I said, a dad of a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old female. I see this gym bro, podcaster bro kind of vibe out there, if you know what I'm talking about. How does that align with the gentleman, or how is it misaligned with the gentleman? And let me explain those terms a little bit. The gym bro is the guy that there's a lot of young men who are very interested in being physically fit, going to the gym, having discipline, being healthy, and they're looking to people like Joe Rogan or some of these other. There's also Andrew Tate out there who's very much into this kind of like go crush it, be an entrepreneur, and how do you think that aligns, and where does it misalign?
Yeah, I think there's I'm not too familiar with most of those, but
Okay.
there may be some good attributes when you talk about entrepreneurism, going on your own, being adventurous. Those are great things, but unfortunately, some of the podcasts that I have encountered online, it's almost as if you have grown men who never grew up, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I always think about the verse from 2 Corinthians, right? When I was a child, I played as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Then I became a man, I put away childish things. And
Right.
unfortunately, I think what we've seen a lot in society over the last couple of decades is the inability or unwillingness of young men to grow up.
Yeah.
Right? They want to stay at home and play video games instead of going out and
Yep.
doing things.
Yep.
Or rather than looking at a female as a person with a soul with whom you can share a relationship with, they see them as something to use, right? And that's unfortunately that's what they see as they go through the internet every day. And I think there's certainly that's very prevalent. I have an older son as well, and he's seen a lot of those sorts of things. And unfortunately, he now lives in Los Angeles, so he really sees it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, my oh boy, I pray every morning for my daughters that they will marry a good Christian man, who will be a perfect match for them for a lifelong, relationship. That God will bless them with healthy Christian children and a lifetime of joy. That's my prayer for my daughters every morning. But I hear from them all the time about their struggle to find men, because they find all these guys who say, oh, they idolize these guys, Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate, or these other guys. And I mean, Andrew Tate, he's a horrible individual. I'll say that. But some of these other guys that have positive things going on, but these guys, it's like they're it's like virtual to them. Like because I'm watching this other person be successful, I'm somehow going to be successful in life, through osmosis or something. They might even go to the gym, but they're still, like you said, they're living at home. They're just, I'm going to be an entrepreneur one day. Well, what are you going to do, man? Go get a job and start making some money. I never did anything glamorous with my life, but one thing I did was I went to work every day and to provide for my wife and my kids. You know what I mean? And it's like just showing up, will get you really far in life. And these guys sit on the couch or in mom's basement waiting for some magic ship to come in, and it never comes. And like you said about treating women, my daughter used to work at a bank. And so people would come in and they'd need account statements or whatever. She'd see their account and it would be like daily multiple payments to like OnlyFans, and she said it was like every guy coming in, and
Wow.
these are young guys just spending their whole paycheck to some online, basically prostitute,
Yeah.
and that is how they spend their day, and then they go live in mom's basement and dream of being some superhero to a wife and kids someday. But it's like, man, that's not how you get there.
That's right.
It's
That's
sad.
right.
Uh, Miss Susan says, what is the most important mental, physical, emotional regime to garner a gentleman? Education, exercise, environment, IQ.
Those are all great. I would go with EQ, right?
EQ. Okay. Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, because the ability to see yourself, but also be cognizant and see others, right? I think that recognition of others and being aware of them is probably one of the most important attributes of a gentleman. And there's a whole variety of ways to do that. Maybe you see someone struggling with something, you help them out. Maybe you realize you're saying something that makes someone comfortable, you rein it in. But the EQ, well, all those other things are important. EQ is very, very important. Now, I will say this: I was very blessed as a young man. I grew up in the South. Being a gentleman and adhering to manners and etiquette was drilled into me from a young age. I took, this may sound corny, I actually had manners and etiquette classes throughout my youth, right? So I think there is an education aspect, if you can, for your children, so they understand some of the perhaps technical details of what it means to be a gentleman.
Yeah, very good. With that, if you don't mind, I'm going to bring up your slideshow, and we can click through some of these. And I don't know if you're watching on your phone or if you'd just like me to kind of tell you what slide we're on. This is the attributes of a gentleman, and I can read them off if you don't have visual on that, gentleman. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. When I clicked over here, you're mute. You were not added to the stage, so
Okay.
nobody could hear you there.
Yeah. No, what I was saying is that we discussed some of these, but yeah, I'll quickly run through them. Obviously,
Okay.
When I think about the attributes of gentleman, honors first and foremost, right? Are you a man? What is your character like? Are you a man of integrity? Right? Do you do what you say you're going to do? And it goes back to those classic virtues that you mentioned as well, right? And we think of temperance and prudence and courage. That's all part of being an honorable man, in my mind. We kind of talked ad nauseum about being mindful of others, but and the dignified in all actions. We talked a little bit about that, and it's not just. We talked a little bit about the vulgarity versus dignified, but I think there's a way to carry yourself as well, in terms of are you hurried and frantic, or are you
Right.
calm and collected? Right. I think
Mhm.
there's a distinction there, and when I see someone that's hurried and frantic, I have to wonder, ooh, is that guy? Is something wrong with him? Is he scared
Right.
of something?
Yeah. Or he doesn't have his life together, and he's just
Right.
running from one fire drill to the next.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
if you couple that with kind of a disheveled appearance, right, where maybe your clothes are wrinkled, you haven't groomed or combed your hair, and you're slouchy, that's
Yeah.
not a very powerful representation of a man in my book.
Right.
And we talked about chivalry. Again, that's, in my mind, I think that's important, because as a gentleman, yeah, you're called upon to do the right thing when others won't do it.
Yeah.
And there's a whole spectrum for that as well. It could be something as simple as there's a piece of trash on the ground,
Yeah.
bend over, pick it up, and put the trash can. Or there's been a terrible car wreck, and I need to stop and see if I can help.
Yeah.
And then lastly, again, this is my personal opinion. I think a man needs to be well-rounded, right? And that doesn't mean you have to be a know-it-all and know everything, but being able to talk intelligently about a number of different topics, whether it be history, art, philosophy, I think it's all important part of being a gentleman. Now, some people don't have the ability to do that, and that's understandable. But if you do, I think you get far more value in life in studying those things than watching television all night.
Right. And when you are, if you are ignorant of something, some people, as like a defense mechanism, will just talk down about it, like, oh, well, art's stupid anyway, or culture, or but if we can talk about football, now that's my thing. But yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of value to what you said about being well-rounded, and even if it's something that you're not familiar with, open your ears and be willing to, sit in on a conversation. You might learn something. Yeah, that's very good.
Absolutely. And
go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just going to add that again, we mentioned this earlier, but when I think of who in history embodies all of those different attributes we just talked about, I always go back to George Washington, right? You think about someone who, yes, part of the landed gentry, I suppose, for early America, but really didn't have a formal education like some of the other founding fathers, right? And that was always kind of a chip on his shoulder. So what did he do? He went out and found books and read and studied on his own.
Yeah.
And what you see there on the right is, again, one of the, you see that manners and etiquette truly mattered to George Washington because, as a 14-year-old, he found a book, The 110 Rules of Civility. It was actually originally a French book from, I believe, the 16th or 17th century. It had been translated, and he transcribed all 110 of those rules.
Yeah.
And then he was determined to live by them. You throw in all the other things, like just how he led people, how he was a calm, confident leader, well-rounded, right? He valued art. He was a great dancer, right? I mean, who would know? A war hero and our first president was a great ballroom dancer. So, yeah, he embodies a lot of that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yep. And I mean, he's known, he's still to remember to this day for those things, and for being humble, and for being honest. He stepped away from the presidency. He did it as a duty, and then he left because he didn't want to be a king. He said, this is enough for one man. So very, very good representation there of a gentleman. Miss Susan has another good question, and before I ask it, I want to, let me read her question, and let me say my part, and then turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Okay.
She says, where does pride fit in? And is or can pride be misconstrued as arrogance? Back to honorable. Can a gentleman be financially successful and honorable simultaneously? I don't think so. Well, let me say this about pride. My dad was a great dad, and he's a little bit old school. And when I had an older brother, and when we were little, I mean little, he all the time, he didn't use the best terminology, but he was basically telling us, don't be wimps. He was like, you're a man, be a man. That hurt, don't cry. It's not like, if I was seriously injured, he was fine with that. But what he was saying is, don't exaggerate and act like this is the worst thing. Be a man, suck it up, and be willing to put up with discomfort. Be willing to go the extra mile for somebody. And then once you've done that, you can feel good about yourself. You know what I mean? Like when it's cold and it's rainy out and we're all running into church, and I stand outside and I'm holding the door for my family, and then an older couple that's coming outside, it's my honor to stand out in the cold rain so that these people can get through, and I feel good about myself. And so I don't know if that's the pride you're talking about, Miss Susan, but I feel I could not feel good about myself if I didn't do those things. And that's not what I'm not saying that as like an arrogance, but like a pride for myself that it's an honor to serve somebody in that way. Do you agree with that?
Completely. And
Yeah.
I love the quote from your father. Be a man. That's actually a Latin quote that I love. Esse verum, right? Be a man. But I agree. I think there's a difference between are we saying pride certainly can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Pride can be a good thing too. Do you take pride in doing those good things?
Right.
All right. Do you take pride in how you carry yourself? Right. So there's
Right.
a positive side of it, and certainly I don't think it really makes a difference about how much money you make or whether you're financially successful or not. Again, I go back to a gentleman in Moscow. You saw a man who had everything at his disposal, and even when he was penniless, he was still a man of honor and a gentleman.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe with great accumulation comes a temptation to be arrogant and to think I've done this all myself and I'm so great or something like that. But I guess there's temptations and traps, down all sorts of corridors we can go in life. Liberty Mom says, boast in the cross. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep. Very good. I'm gonna bring your slides back up here. George Washington, and then he had some of your favorite rules of civility and decent behavior.
Yeah, so I tell you, Dave, I chuckled when I read these because some of them, I feel like, wow, we really need to start exercising these in today's society. And rule number 4, of course, in the presence of others, sing not to yourself with a humming noise, nor drum with your fingers or feet. The modern equivalent would be FaceTiming in public,
right?
Or loud music. Likewise, with rule number 24, do not laugh too loud or too much at any public spectacle. Again, that's carrying yourself in a dignified manner and not letting your emotions get the best of you. And then 49, we've already actually discussed, right? Use no reproachful language against anyone, neither curse or revile. And again, there's no need to be vulgar or to curse at someone.
Right.
And certainly not in the presence of ladies.
Absolutely. I actually was familiar with this book before this evening. I got a copy of it when I was a teenager, and these are a few that stuck out to me as maybe they're a little humorous, but they're actually they're really good. The first one is, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. And that kind of, I thought it was just worded funny when I was a teenager, eat not to dullness. But, it's about knowing your limits and just not overdoing anything, not being excessive. Moderation, basically. Number 2, undertake not what you cannot perform, but be careful to keep your promise. Again, Jesus talks about people, determining the cost before going to battle, and those kind of things. Like, if you tell somebody you're going to do something, you should do it. And so don't tell people you're going to do things that you cannot do. We should be careful about what we promise. A third one is, speak not evil of the absent, for it is unjust. All the time there's people speaking slander or gossip, and I know I don't like it when people do that about me. We shouldn't be doing it about other people.
That's right. That's a good one.
Absolutely. And one more. Associate yourself with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation, for it is better to be alone than in bad company.
Oh man, that is so good and so true. Right. Yeah. Especially it's important for everyone, but when I think about young men, right, who, we've talked to our older son and our older daughter about this, is be careful who you are around, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or you're in danger of becoming them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those are all great. I love those.
Yeah. Liberty Mom says, scripture says, if you're going to have pride, take pride in the cross of Jesus. Yeah, absolutely. Miss Susan says, thank you, Ms. Liberty Mom, gracious, generous, kind. Yeah, a lot of positive things in the chat room. Very good. I'm gonna add your slides back in here. Let's see here. All right, you've got some pictures here of a couple gentlemen on the next slide.
So it's unfortunate that in modern political discourse, it's almost become a circus, right? In terms of
Yeah.
how outrageous some of our politicians and our leaders can be on both sides
Yep.
of the aisle. And
Yep.
when I was really struggling, as I asked myself, are there any modern politicians that perhaps one could emulate in terms of how they carry themselves and as a gentleman? And as I thought about it, these two gentlemen came to mind. So that's Senator John Thune of South Dakota on the left.
Okay.
He's currently the Senate Majority Leader, and on the right, that's
Mhm.
Harold Ford Jr. He served as a congressman from Memphis in the late '90s and early 2000s, and now he's a political pundit and a businessman. But what I like about both these gentlemen, again, Thune, Republican, Ford, Democrat, I have never seen them speak in a vulgar or disrespectful manner to anyone, politician, journalist, or otherwise. And then whenever I've seen them, they are carrying themselves in a dignified manner. In fact, Harold Ford, he's a Democrat that's on Fox News, and they attack him, and he never lets it get to him, right? So I think there
Yeah.
are, and I point this out because I do think there are men out there that still carry these attributes, whether it be in the public space, in the entertainment industry, what have you. They're still there, and when we see them, those are the ones that we need to emulate.
Absolutely. Very good. I'm going to click to your next slide here. We got some pictures of Cary Grant.
Yeah, so I love old Cary Grant, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everything I've seen some of his old movies. I've seen I've read about how he carried himself. But I tell you what, when I think about someone that carries themselves in a dignified manner, wow! I mean, few men can pull off an ascot, but Cary Grant can do it, right? But
Absolutely. Yeah.
but yeah, cool, calm, collected, and just has the look of confidence that I think every man should have, and regardless, again, whether they have money or their status in life, you can carry yourself in a dignified manner.
Absolutely. Very good. All right. We've got Gregory Peck on the next slide here.
So I had this for two reasons, David. And number one is because, just like Cary Grant, Gregory Peck, from what I've read, was one of those gentlemen of old Hollywood. But this particular character has always stuck with
Mhm.
me my whole life as Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. And
Yep.
what that character represented in terms of courage, right? Doing the right thing when everybody in town was against him. And there's lots of great quotes from that book. But yeah, I've always just had such high regard for Gregory Peck as an actor, but in particular this character of Atticus Finch. And the one that always gets me is, be careful how you judge a man until you walk a mile in his shoes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always stuck with me. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's another one of old Hollywood that I think that just great example for us to emulate.
Absolutely. Very good. One speaking of movies, this movie does not portray a gentleman. In the end, I think he kind of comes around in the spirit, maybe. But Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood, he's a really bad character. He's racist. He doesn't like his neighbors or any of this kind of stuff. And this kid tries to break in and steal his Gran Torino, and then he ends up like taking this kid under his wing, and he ends up dying for the kid in the end of the movie. But something the movie really, it's one of my favorite movies because it shows how difficult it would be to be a kid growing up in the hood like these kids were. It's very easy to sit in suburbia, in a safe community and look at the news and say, oh, those I would never do something like that. But you see this kid, his cousins are all in the gang. Everybody else in the neighborhood is in the gang. And if he doesn't join with these other men, they're going to beat the tar out of him or maybe kill him. And faced with a choice like that, what would I do but maybe fall in line with these guys? And like the first thing that they put him up to is you got to go steal a car, so that's how he meets Clint Eastwood. But I think if we could all have some humble pie and try to walk a mile in somebody's shoes, at least in theory, and think about, I didn't just pull myself up by my bootstraps. There is something to that. We should all work hard to improve our condition, no matter what the condition. We are responsible for our actions, but we can have some humility and not be arrogant and prideful about it, but have a soft spot to know that a lot of people are in more difficult spots than us.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. All right, back to your slides here. We've got all right. I see Denzel, and I don't know the other guy's name.
That's Henry Cavill, Superman.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, from the Isle of Jersey, right, in the English Channel. But the reason I put these guys up here is because, unfortunately, all too often in Hollywood, you have the kind of the what do you call them, the Jumbros, right? The perpetual children, the Jack Blacks and those types. But these two, again, wonderful examples of men that, whether you see them speaking at an award ceremony, the characters they portray, they are usually carrying themselves with dignity, how they look, what they say. If I recall, Denzel's been married to his wife for decades. So again, there are gentlemen out there, and those are the ones that we need to put on a pedestal and say, okay, what is that guy doing right, as opposed to these other people who don't have life together. All right. But again, two examples. There are others out there in Hollywood, I'm sure, but these are two that come to my mind.
Yeah, that's great. I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, here's the book you were talking about, A Gentleman in Moscow.
That's the book. I wanted to just have a fiction and a nonfiction book. So The Gentleman in Moscow, again, wonderful book. I highly recommend it. It is a fast read. You could sit down and read this in a weekend, but it is a wonderful book that you will want to go back and reread. And then the next book, I've already mentioned, but How to Win Friends and Influence People. I tell all young people that are mentors, get this book. And some of the things that they talk about may seem cheesy, but it all makes sense, right? And he's got 10 principles that he talks about that are all very important. Everything from you don't argue. You're not going to win an argument. If you do win an argument, you're going to lose a friend, right? Something is based. One of his principles is smile. It's as simple as that, right? It sets people at ease. It shows that you're a caring person. But those types of principles throughout this book, man, make a world of difference. And there's a lot about being conscious of other people and making them feel good about a situation. So highly recommend that book.
Great, very good, thank you. Okay, next picture is Madam X by Mr. Sargent.
Yeah. Oh, so I had to add, I tend to focus on American artists, not because I don't like European artists. I do. And the Sargent's a little different because he spent most of his time in Florence. But but there's not a whole lot of people that really highlight American artists on X. So that's kind of my genre, who I focus on. And this, of course, the deal with Madame X, very scandalous painting from the 1880s. And of course, it was an uproar because it was, the nature of the painting and whatnot. But again, John Singer Sargent, I think, I wanted to highlight him. He's one of my favorite painters in American. And this one stands out. Likewise, his next painting, which is Rosina, around the same time period. But, it's hard to see there, but she has a grin on and smile on her face. Such a wonderful expression of joy.
Yeah.
And I've read that this was Sargent's favorite muse. She was actually a model for another artist there in Florence, but he had a special relationship with her, and she inspired him. And you can see that in her face. But I love this painting as well. But of course, there are dozens of other Sargent paintings, but those are two that I wanted to share that I really like.
Yeah, they're just spectacular for sure. Yeah, I've always loved Sargent. And what I like about him is his work has such a vitality to it, so much life, and but it doesn't look like some people you'll see on X. Sometimes people post like pictures, and this is a painting, it's not a photograph. And what the artist did was they took a photograph and then they just painstakingly reproduced it in paint. And it's like, okay, you made a painting look just like a photograph, but why didn't you just use the photograph other than just to like brag about a technical skill or something? But to me, this is like, it still looks like paint, and it has a quality that a photograph can never have. It has a certain movement. His brush strokes are loose, and where they're tight, it draws in your eye, like a natural like focal point. He really is a master that I've appreciated. And that's one thing I really liked about your account. You're in Frederick Remington too. He's awesome as well. And I think Wyeth, you like NC Wyeth as well, right? Oh, I don't know if, can you hear me, sir? I'm not hearing the gentleman. I hope that he can still hear me. Gentlemen, if you can hear me, we cannot hear you, or at least I cannot hear you. I don't know if anybody else drop a comment if you hear him talking, but let me send him a little message here and let him know that I cannot hear him. Okay. Shelly says, nope, can't hear him. I can hear you, but not the gentleman. Okay, so gentlemen, if you can hear me, we cannot hear you, sir. So hopefully you can get that straightened out. I see your mic is not muted, so it's not that, at least not on the platform we're on. Hopefully you didn't hit the mute button on your phone. While we were waiting for him to join back, let me look through some of my other questions or comments here. Are you guys enjoying the show? I'm enjoying the show. I really think this is a great topic. One thing I want to talk to the gentleman about is some practical ways we can reclaim this lost ideal. Looks like he is. Sir, can you hear me?
You hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, sir. Okay, great. I'm glad that we have you back. Next slide that we have here is it's a marble bust.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Great.
Great.
I'm finally going to get this figured out, David. I promise. Okay.
Great.
So this is I really like this, but this is Hiram Powers.
Okay. Yeah.
He's one of the best sculptors in American history. A lot of people don't know a lot about him. Again, spent a lot of time in Europe, in Italy particularly. But this is America. He made this in 1854, and he did a great job, kind of having the if you will, Greek revival look about different topics. Like he has one on California. He has one, the last of the tribe, like a Native American woman, but she looks like a Greek goddess. And this one stands out to me. When you think of America, right, just graceful and elegant, and to be treated softly, right, or with great respect. So there's this one, and then on the other, if you go to the next one, the other side of the coin is Ben Franklin, right? So he also did a masterful job of creating sculptures about our forefathers. He has one of George Washington. He has Andrew Jackson, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and many others. But this one I really like just kind of the thoughtful look on Ben
Hmm.
Franklin's face, right? When I think of Ben Franklin, this is kind of the look I imagine he gave quite often as
Yeah.
he's observing or thinking about something. But again, Hiram Powers, if you haven't seen his work, I wanted to share this just so I can, spread the word about this guy so he's not lost to history.
Yes, you did a very nice thread on this the other day as well, right? People can check that out on your account.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, that was great.
And then another
Okay.
favorite. I'll let you guess. Who do you think that is? Who do you think?
Is this Winslow Homer?
You're the man.
Or is this going to be a Wyatt? Homer?
Homer. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the lifeline.
Okay.
Obviously, he had a lot of different seascapes, and I could choose any number of them. There's a lot of great ones, but I love this one because of the courage. Right. This man in this painting is risking his life to save another man. And we talk about one of the attributes of a gentleman is chivalry and helping others. I imagine it would be pretty easy for the person in this painting just to say, "Yeah, too hard. He's done."
Yeah.
Or send me, I'll go. Right. And I love all Homer's work. Fantastic. But this one is my particular favorite. And again, it's called The Lifeline.
Yeah, I am unfamiliar with this one, but this is great. Thank you for introducing me to this one. This is I'll check it out after the show in a bigger format so I can see more of the details. But that's a great subject matter for sure. Thank you for those slides. We're going to wrap up here soon, people. So if you have any more questions, please drop them in the comments now. I've got one or two more questions, gentlemen. If you have the time, let me add you to the stage here. There you go. What are some practical steps that people can take to reclaim the gentleman? And let me maybe in two scenarios. One is just for the people that are listening that are maybe they're kind of in your and my place in life, and we see for our kids that their kind of generation. What can we do to try to revive this gentleman? And number two, what if a young man is listening right now and he says, "Well, I don't know about Winslow Homer, and I don't have a suit, and I have a habit of chewing with my mouth open at the table." Like, where does he start? What is kind of like a pathway for him to becoming a gentleman? And maybe just some broader, for the rest of us, what can we do to kind of support the revival of the gentleman?
Yeah. So start with the first portion of your question in terms of helping our children or other young people kind of start on this path or keep on this path. And I'd say it's the same for young ladies and gentlemen as well. Number one, I'm a believer, so I believe faith plays a big role in laying a good foundation. Some people don't have that in their lives, and that's understandable. But important just to teach them the value of helping others and having a servant's heart. I think that goes a long ways in just being a gentleman and a lady, right? Treat others how you want to be treated, the golden rule. So I think that's number one. And then I do think there's opportunities to, take your children or young people to museums, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just local art, developing an appreciation for music, for art and culture. And I love sports too. Hey, there's nothing wrong with going to a soccer game. Those are all great things to do, of course, in the effort to become well-rounded. And then when the opportunities do present themselves, I find great value in cotillion or Grace's courses. And depending on where you live, you may or may not have them. But if you do, they can be very, very helpful. The ones I took as a young man started in 6th grade, continued through your senior year. And you started with very basic, etiquette and manners. And as you progress by the end, you're at a formal dinner, ballroom dancing, all those sorts of things that unfortunately a lot of people don't get exposed to for one reason or another. So if you can find those opportunities for the young people in your life, while they may hate it at the time, I think it helps them down the road. Okay, so that's for the young people. For the person perhaps who is on his own, or a young person listening, again, start with the golden rule. And then the two other aspects of that is you find someone that you want to be like. And it could be a coach, a principal, a pastor at church, but someone that carries themselves in that dignified manner that I want to be like that person.
Yeah.
And then just learn from them and just tell them, hey, can you mentor me? Can you tell me, why do you do what you do? Can you teach me how to tie a tie? I don't know. Right. I distinctly remember my high school coach teaching a lot of my teammates how to tie a tie. And I thought, wow, they don't know how to tie a tie. What? Now I know they probably didn't have a dad to teach them.
You're right.
And then, of course, be wary of who you hang around as a young person. If the people you're hanging around aren't on the right path, and they are not the people that you want to be like, then find a new set of friends.
Absolutely.
So that's
you will become like your friends, won't you?
That's exactly.
For
sure. That's exactly either in a good way or a bad way.
Right. Very good. Miss Susan says faith is underrated, and 100% agree on that one. And then Shelley with Beautiful History says, you guys have covered everything very well, so I can't think of any questions, except I'm wondering if any men are listening, since most of all the comments have been from women. Very good point, Shelley. Very good.
So maybe that's part of the problem, Shelley. We've got to really, the women in our lives have to share this, this gospel of gentlemanly behavior that we're discussing.
That's right. Miss Susan says that she unfortunately joined a little late. Please reintroduce the guests. Pardon. And one thing, Miss Susan, also this is recorded, so you can always watch from the beginning afterwards to catch anything that you missed. But just if you're not familiar, this is The Ways of a Gentleman. He has a fantastic account here on X, and I hope you certainly will follow him after the show. Just in the show itself, you'll be able to find his handle, and you'll be able to click on there and follow him. But he is sharing all kinds of things about culture and about how to be a gentleman, examples of gentlemen, and just topics that are important to gentlemen. And I heard him speaking the other day, I think with Catholic Frequency, and it was another great discussion. And just very, very pleased that you're able to join us this evening. Let me ask you, we've talked a lot about men tonight, gentlemen, and as Shelley pointed out, we have a lot of ladies. What about the ladies? We have a gentleman and a lady. Are they kind of, do you see them at the same point in society that we are with gentlemen? Or do they, have they kept their footing a little better than what the gentleman has? And is there any differing advice for them that you would give?
Yeah, it's a great point. Unfortunately, I think there's also kind of a denigration of values for young ladies. I see it when I went to visit my daughter on her college campus recently, and wow, a lot of those young ladies leave nothing to the imagination, and it's far worse than what I experienced in college, 30 years ago. But yeah, I do think that whether it's societal, from the entertainment industry, or what is seen on social media, or perhaps young ladies trying to appeal to those gym bros that you referred to earlier, right?
Yeah.
They are trying to appeal to the wrong crowd, right?
Right.
And hey, again, just as we talk about young men being dignified and how they carry themselves, likewise for the young ladies. I would tell young ladies, be the woman, or be the woman now that you want to be 20 years from now when you're a wife and a mother.
Right. 100%. Don't do things that you don't want to, tell your future husband about, or that you don't want to share with your kids someday. If you live your life with that long view, that long horizon view, you make such better decisions. And I tried, when I was a young man, to think like, there's no point in dating a woman if she's not a wife material. Like, that is the point of dating. I'm not going to go chase after some girl that I know is not a quality woman, because, the worst that would happen is I might fall in love with her and marry the wrong person, And I've tried to tell my kids that too, like, don't date a guy just to date a guy. Date a guy if you think he's potential husband material, and as soon as you find out that he's not, it's time to get rid of that guy, right? Let's see here. One more comment here from Miss Susan. Indeed, Liberty Mom. Women are a disaster, she's saying. Young ladies are a mess, she says. Gentlemen cannot find ladies. So sad, breaks my heart. Yes, it is. It is tragic what we see these days. Well, gentlemen, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
No, I would say this. I want to thank you for being such a gracious and understanding host. Clearly, I need to work on my technological skills, but I'm glad we're ending actually with the avatar on there, and you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity, David. It's been a nice evening, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, sir, let me first of all thank you for your service to our country. We would not have the wonderful things that we do, the peace for our families that we enjoy, without gentlemen like yourself. So thank you for that, first of all. Second of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been great to have this discussion with you and to get to know you a little better. Really appreciate it, and I think that your channel is a great channel on X, and highly recommend everybody. Hey, everybody, after the show, please follow him if you're not following him. Please share this show with other people. Send it to a young man or young lady who you think it might be good for. And I'll be doing some little snippets of the show and posting those throughout the week as well.
David,
thank you for... Yeah.
Please, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm delayed here. Two last points. I do have an ebook that will be published very soon. It's the 48 Ways of a Gentleman, and it covers three aspects: the gentleman at Mills, the gentleman about town, and the gentleman with his lady. So look for that. And then also, I have more expanded writing on Substack.
Yes.
A lot of the things we talked about, I go much, much deeper. So I just wanted to share that, but terribly sorry for interrupting you.
No, I'm so glad that you did share those things. Those are great. His account will give you a high level view, but definitely subscribe to him. Check out his newsletter on Substack. That's free right now, sir. Is that correct?
There are free articles every week. There's also paid articles. Yep. So there's both on them.
Awesome. So great way to dig in more. And folks, I want to do a little blurb for next week. Tentatively, April 4th, this would be next week's Friday, we'll be having a special guest, the Classical Aegis. We're still trying to work out a time on that, but looking forward to that show. But gentlemen, I want to thank you again so much for this evening. Thank you, everybody, for your comments, and just a great evening. So God bless everybody, and have a good night. Talk to you later.